Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. It's Bailey, and I hope you're having a great Wednesday or whenever you're listening to today's episode. Today, we are keeping things kind of short and sweet. I feel like the last few episodes have been very educationally based. There's been a lot of information maybe thrown at you, a lot of maybe new concepts or ideas. And although I love doing that, I have some really incredible guests coming on in the next couple weeks. And so I know the next few episodes will actually be pretty education based. So I wanted to make today just kind of fun. I love listening to podcasts where I learn a lot, but I also love listening to podcasts where it's just chatty. There's maybe not a lot of depth, but there's substance. And that is kind of what I'm hoping to deliver today. Really, I feel like when it comes to my life right now, which we're just going to get into it, I feel like I'm in a phase where there's just a lot of transition happening. There's a lot of groundwork being laid for things happening in the future. And I was just having this conversation with Nathan actually about how I feel like I'm just in this like lull phase. And it's something that in the past I think I would have found very, very scary. But right now I find it kind of comforting because what I maybe think that I want isn't actually what I want right now. Especially like in regards to, I have to talk about my business because that's just like a big passion project of mine. But even in regards to one-on-one coaching, I'm actually not running my Nourish to Flourish program anymore after September, which is kind of bittersweet because that's the program I've run women through for the last 2 years. And it's been such a huge part of my business and growing my business and realizing that what I'm doing with women is working. And to see the results of that, it's just like the most insane, incredible experience. But things are changing and evolving. And I'm kind of like stepping into this, I don't want to sound corny. It's going to sound very corny, but like an evolved version of myself almost in a way. Like everything that I've laid the groundwork for, now I'm just like stepping it up a level. And there's so many different things that are coming with that. But I think that's been why it's kind of hard for me to sit down and not even record episodes. Like I love to get on here and talk, but I feel like there's a lot of things that I'm not sharing with you that I want to be sharing with you that I will shortly, but just can't right now. And I'm very excited for when I can share everything because you will of course be the first people to know what's all going on, but just so you kind of know where I'm at, because I kind of think we need to be on the same level. We need to understand like where I'm at and what's on my mind recently. And kind of why my catch-ups, maybe to you, they've seemed very lengthy. For me, I'm like, what? I was telling Nathan, I'm like, what do I catch up with them on? Like, I feel like I don't have much to share. And it's because there's so much to share, but things that I'm just keeping private for a while regarding business and all the things. And I think that's fun because I love to have something to look forward to. And that's, of course, that. But all of that to say, I wanted to share with you how much it means to me when you reach out and say like, oh, I listened to this episode and I took this tidbit of information from the podcast and now like I use it all the time. And I had this happen a couple times in the last week. One example I can really remember is I was talking to somebody about pasta sauce of all things. Well, my thing for people that are picky eaters is like add some spinach or broccoli, cooked broccoli to your pasta sauce, blend it up, put it over your noodles. The color will change, but I promise you won't taste it. And somebody had said that they did that. And I'm like that just makes me so happy. And it makes me happy to know that little things that I share with people are actually being utilized. And I think sometimes we look at success as monetary value, and I realized that with what I do, there's so much knowledge, and I'm not saying this arrogantly because there's so much yet for me to learn, but there's so much knowledge that I've accumulated over the last 4 years, especially since graduating college, probably more so since graduating from college, I've learned. And so I want to share it, and I want what I share to be accessible to everyone. And that doesn't mean you get the accountability or the one-on-one support or the really in-depth personalized protocol for you when I share things openly, but nonetheless, like, it's still making an impact. And I was at the school recently. I'm going to shout out Tammy because she made my day. Tammy works at the school in the city, or in the town that I live in. Anyway, she was like, Bailey, it's Wednesday. And I'm like, yeah, what about it? She's like, well, it's podcast day. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that just makes my day. I kind of forget that people close in my community do also listen to the podcast, because to me, it's like just a spew fest. Like, I just share everything and hope that it resonates with someone, because I find that in most cases, when you are vulnerable and when you share things that are a little uncomfortable, you end up building connections with people so much faster. And so it's just been really fun. And I don't know, if you have things that you've implemented because you've listened to the podcast, or because you know me in real life, or we've ever worked together, like, I just love when you share those things with me. Another example is I took Monday off because I wanted to have Sunday and Monday off, because I work Friday and Saturdays most weeks, but it was Labor Day on Monday. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take the day off. I was planning to work, but I knew if my husband wasn't working, it'd be a lot harder to be motivated to work. But anyway, so then when I opened up my messages over the weekend, I had a gal who did my second round of Inflamed to Inspired, which is my hybrid coaching program. And it was a photo of her daughter doing the facial cold plunge that we talk about for that nervous system reset. And she was like, my daughter wanted to do what mom does. And I'm like, gosh, like, it is just so cool to see those things. And that is why I'm so passionate about moms taking care of their bodies and really prioritizing their health. And I think that's something that maybe it's talked about more than I think it is. I'm obviously not in a mom's group. I'm not a mom, so I don't really know what conversations happen there. But I think oftentimes moms don't maybe financially invest in themselves or in something that they know will help them, because they have their family focus first, right? Like, well, what mom can take an hour out of a week to join a Zoom call with 8 other women and talk about what's going on, or to learn more about improving or decreasing inflammation? And when you do, I just think so many incredible things happen. It is just such a trickled effect in the family. When mothers invest in themselves and start really focusing on their health, you start to notice your kids do the same, and your husband does something similar or wants to make changes. And it's just something that, like I said, I'm not a mom, but to see it improve women's lives so frequently and improve the lives of their family because they took that time to invest time and money and resources into themselves, the effect of that is just always incredible. And I've seen it happen way too many times to not just like shout that out. If you are somebody who is on the fence, or if you're like, resources are tight, like I could never do anything like that. And it's not something you always have to financially invest in, but I think the accountability piece is definitely big when it comes to investing in yourself. And I don't know, it was just the best message to get on a Tuesday morning, which is the day I'm recording this episode, and to see just like the trickled effect of a mom taking care of herself, to see her daughter, who I don't even know how old she is, like wanting to do the same. I just think that's pretty cool. So those are some really positives happening right now. Of course, it always just makes my day and to see and hear things like that. But kind of jumping more into the bulk of today's episode, like I said, it's going to be It's going to be pretty short and sweet, but I think that's okay. And you know me, I like to ramble, so it probably won't actually be all that short. First, though, I wanted to do this segment where I talk about how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. I do this every single week on the podcast because I truly believe that all three of these need to have that support and that care in order to live a truly nourished life, a truly well life. So how I am nourishing my body right now, I would say that I'm probably eating more frequently throughout the day, but I'm eating kind of like smaller meals. And this is something I've kind of experimented with in the past, but more so recently hadn't really done. And it's not something that I'm also recommending to you. I'm just saying what has worked for me. But I feel like I was noticing in the morning I would be super hungry, and then in the afternoon I really wouldn't be all that hungry. So what I've been doing is and this is part of what I'm going to share on today's episode, but I've been doing breakfast in the morning, and then I'll eat a meal again about like 10 or 10:30, like I call it second breakfast, and then I'll have lunch like normal, and then I notice I'm not hungry then until supper. I used to really be an afternoon snacker, and now I'm noticing that's hitting much more in the morning. And so just something I'm playing with, I'm having fun with. I went shopping at Whole Foods and Trader Joe's this last week when I was in Lincoln, and you guys, I could seriously spend hours in both of those stores, more so Whole Foods, because there's just so many brands that are incredible, and I want to try a little bit of everything. So I got some really fun things to try. I actually made some crab ragoons from scratch on Saturday, and they turned out okay. I need to get a different wonton wrapper, but nonetheless, I was pretty impressed with myself. I used canned tuna, a lactose-free cream cheese, and some chives, salt and pepper. So easy. Put that in a wonton wrapper, folded it up, and then we air fried it for like 10 minutes. And that was just really fun. And it's like I wouldn't have maybe had that inspiration had I not gone to a different grocery store. And so I think the inspiration coming from just shopping somewhere that's not Walmart just kind of like led me into having such a great weekend, which just seems kind of funny that something like that could really influence my mood that much. But when I tell you that I love Whole Foods and that I love looking at different brands of foods and finding different recommendations for clients, it seriously is like a kid in a candy store. And so that was just such a highlight. And I feel like, again, I wanted to nourish my body better because I had different food and was inspired by different things. So then how I'm nourishing my mind. Oh gosh. I would say with this one, probably the mornings that I'm being very intentional with not being on my phone or actually I shouldn't say even not being on my phone. Most importantly, it's not being on Instagram. I think I've shared this before, but it's really bizarre, but I noticed that if I look at my phone, I'm not really that addicted to continue to look at my phone. But if I look at my phone in the morning, even after I've looked at the sunlight, maybe I haven't done my devotional, but I've at least had breakfast. If I open Instagram, I have a dependency on Instagram for the whole entire day. And it really is the worst. So that's something I'm trying to prevent, is just not opening that app until I've had breakfast, I've done my devotional, I've spent my time outside, I've done a workout, and then I will open up Instagram. And that's really hard, especially because I spent the month of July not really being on Instagram. August, I feel like I was consuming a lot, not really sharing a lot. And then this month I'm having like a jolt of creativity again. And so it's hard to not want to open it up and see what's going on. But that's something I know I feel so much better mentally throughout the whole day if I don't do that. And then spiritually, I would say really just recognizing maybe different signs that God has given us. And I was talking to a client about this today, and I was saying that I don't think that, let me backtrack. I think that God gives us a lot of signs. We could maybe see signs in everything if we are really trying to maybe get the answer we desire. But I feel like when God is giving you a sign or trying to communicate something with you, it usually resonates and it kind of hits on a little bit deeper level than just like, oh, the sun came up today and I saw this bird fly across the sky and it made me think of this person and it was a sign that they were looking over me. And that's not to like mimic that at all, because that could be very, very valid for some people. But I sometimes think it's a little bit deeper, and I sometimes also believe there's a little bit more resistance to the sign that God is giving us. And I saw this quote, and it's kind of cheesy in a sense, but I really feel like when we think about it, we can all probably kind of relate to it. It was something along the lines that if the Lord is closing some doors, you have to trust that He's opening others. And I think that is definitely where I'm finding myself, is I'm noticing, again, I talked about like that resistance, that just like a season of anticipation, kind of like when you have butterflies, like that's what I feel all the time, but I don't really know why. And I think that, to me, I'm taking that as a sign of like some things happening around me haven't worked out super well. Other things have worked out super great. And taking that resistance and that frustration and understanding that I'm doing something so much bigger than that I can't dwell on the things that aren't working, because there is a reason why they aren't. And so just recognizing those signs, and again, that's like being very generic and not specific with that at all. So I don't even know if that's helpful, but I think when we start our mornings, and when I start my mornings with Christ in focus and at the center, and really do my devotional, I spend time in the sun and I pray and I read my Bible, it's just such a different outlook on the day than when I don't, right? Like when that's the foundation that you start with, then you start to notice little things around you happening that maybe you wouldn't have recognized if you didn't start your day off having that conversation with God. And so I think that's just always is like a foundational thing that I have to come back to. If I notice I feel a little off, things aren't going super well, it's like, well, yeah, Bailey, you've not been consistent with this. And that morning time for me is so crucial. Okay, so with that, let's get into the bulk of today's episode. We are talking about the 10 things that I'm loving right now. I will get some kind of specific with these things, but some you're just going to know because I've probably shared about them 100 times. The first one being eating breakfast before my workout. And I was listening to a podcast of things that I already knew, but they were talking about Andrew Huberman and how he had on somebody to talk about cortisol in women and the benefits of women consuming something before they exercise. Things I know, but Nathan told me I need to update you, because I used to always say that I would work out fasted, and as long as I was able to eat within an hour of waking up, right? I don't work out fasted anymore. If I am going to get up to go for a workout, I will either do overnight oats. I really like that is a quick form of energy. I use raw milk primarily as my protein there, and then the chia seeds. I would love to add a scoop of protein powder into it, but I have yet to find one I really, really love. And I know which one I need to order. I just haven't yet. So that is something I will do, or I will do a phage or phage, or however you pronounce it, F-A-G-E, lactose-free yogurt bowl with berries on it and some granola. I'm trying to think of what the brand is that I got from Whole Foods. Eco something, but it's like an oatmeal raisin granola, and it's delicious. I got it when we were in Boston in February-ish, March-ish, whatever month we went. I think it was beginning of March, and I was obsessed with it, but I couldn't fly back with it. So what I did is I had to leave it there, of course. And so I bought it when I was at Whole Foods this week, and it's delicious. So that is something else that I will do. And really that's it. That's kind of my first breakfast. I think about something like that's quick energy, typically high fat, something that's going to fuel me for a strength or a cardio focused workout, especially on Sundays when I go for the 4-mile runs with my dad. I know I need to eat something that's a quick energy source before that, because that's super high cardio. But even with lifting, I feel so much better when I eat something. And so it's not something huge, but that has made a really, really big difference. So then, like I said, I will do second breakfast around 10, and I just feel better doing that. I don't know. My mornings, because I work out in the mornings, are the time I'm just the more hungry. So like my afternoon snack has now come to my mid-morning snack, and I'm not upset about it. Okay. What I want to actually include within this is going to be Form workouts, which I've definitely shared about a few weeks ago. Form is by Sammy Clark, and it's this platform that I truly could not rave enough about. And I do have a code for them if you ever want to try it out. I don't say this because I'm trying to promote and make money off of you joining. I genuinely have just loved getting back into these workouts. What's really cool is that they are always evolving. Like, it blows my mind how they're always evolving. So it used to just be Sammy Clark. If you don't know these people, their names are probably not relevant, but if you do. So Sammy Clark she used to be the primary trainer. She would do strength focused workouts, Pilates focused workouts. Then she added on Brinley Joyner. She's also like popular on Instagram. Anyway, she does the strength focused workouts and the core focused workouts, and they're killer. So like if you need a gym workout routine, but you also want to do like mat Pilates, I love it because you can do both. And now what is super cool for any of you moms or any of you thinking about having kids in the next few months or few years, she's adding prenatal workouts and then workouts that you can do in your first, second, third trimester, and then as your body recovers. And that's huge. Like the fact that they're always evolving like that. And I think what really has just made it stand out in the more recent weeks is when they announced the prenatal workout routine, because something that I'm very proud of myself for is I've been preparing, and this is, whenever we would decide to have kids, I've been preparing my body for the last 2 years to be strong enough to carry a child, right? When you have some sort of injury, for me, again, low back, fractured vertebrae, bulging disc. When I learned that, I remember being 18, and it was very much a conversation at that point that, well, maybe I should consider having back surgery before I ever want to have kids, just to make sure that my back is stable and strong enough to be pregnant, right? And I think when I then made the transition to no longer thinking about medication and injections and surgery being my first step, but rather looking at food and lifestyle and exercise, I really prioritized core strength. And that's something that I'm very, very proud of myself for, which I don't often say, but I really am, because looking at myself, I would not say like, oh yeah, like visibly her core is just so strong. But internally, you guys, like those muscles are pretty strong. Like I sometimes am very impressed with myself. And this isn't to sound arrogant, like I said, but just to understand, like, because I knew that my body was weaker in one area, I knew I needed to strengthen the counteracting muscles, which would be my core. And to spend the last, more than 2 years since we've been married. So we just had our 3rd wedding anniversary. So 3+ years, like I've really prioritized that. And even before that, maybe I was over exercising and under eating. You all probably know that part of my story by now, but I was still so strength focused. And so I think that's why Form coming out with this is just like such an incredible step for them and so unique to them to offer this, because no, you don't need to just be expecting to do these workouts, but they're just gentle on your body. And I work with a lot of women who have a lack of pelvic floor strength. Maybe they notice like their low back really hurts, or that they just don't feel strong, like those internal muscles just don't feel strong. I always recommend pelvic floor. So to have a resource like this that is very pelvic floor focused, it's just really cool. So I, of course, am loving that. I lead my own Pilates and strength workout classes on Mondays and Wednesdays. So I work out 3 times each of those days. So that's enough in itself, but it's nice to have a platform to go to where I don't have to think about the workout. I can do Pilates and strength, and that's my favorite type of workout to do because I love to feel strong, but I also like to feel lean and and I know this isn't technically how it works, but you just feel toned, like you just feel strong. And it really is very challenging for me. So it's fun to always add in a little Pilates because it's still really something that's difficult for me. Okay, so outside of that, Form, love it. Bailey S20, I think will get you 20% off of an annual membership. I'll link that in the show notes. Again, this isn't to make money off of you. Genuinely obsessed with this program and very, very passionate about preventative healthcare or preventative care. And that is just one of the best ways I found to do it is through exercise and through plans that I'm passionate about and I'm excited to do. And I just know how influential strength training has been for me, especially as I think about the future and wanting to have kids. It's like to know my body's prepared for that season of life. It just is a whole different feeling in itself. So just wanted to shout that out because I've also been loving that. Okay, the third thing is my mornings outside, which this isn't new. Everybody probably at this point's like, yeah, Bailey, we know. You love to spend time outside, get the sunlight in your eyes. But it has felt so different in the fall, which I'm claiming September 1st. After September 1st as fall. I know it's not technically fall. To me, it is, because when you go outside in the morning, it's like a brisk 60, 65 degrees, if not cooler. And I've been going outside with my breakfast, eating it as the sun is in like that golden state. So it's like just coming up and I'm getting it in my eyeballs, but I'm also just sitting there and breathing and being so present. I also have been taking a book outside with me, my devotional, and also my Bible, and reading it out there. And it's just so relaxing. And I've honestly appreciated that more on the mornings where I don't work out in the morning, because I like to be in my pajamas, put on a sweatshirt, and go outside and just get fresh air. So that is something that has made just a huge difference for me. I don't know. I just feel so much better throughout the rest of my day when I'm able to set aside that time and be very intentional with how I'm spending it. Number 4 is fall baking. If you don't follow me over on Instagram and you want some fall recipes, just message me because I can send them your way. But I have been posting, I did like a pumpkin brownie recipe. It was so gooey in the inside because I didn't use eggs. I used a banana instead, which I promise you can't taste if you're kind of weird about bananas and stuff. But it allowed me to be able to bake it a little bit less and have that gooey center. And it was just so good. So I posted that recipe. I also posted a maple pumpkin coffee creamer, dairy-free, so delicious. So that's another fun one I've made. And then lastly, I did a butternut squash. I thought it was kind of like a mac and cheese, but if you're expecting it to be very cheesy, you're going to be disappointed because it is dairy-free. But I would say it's more of like a creamy butternut squash pasta. Also delicious. So those are fun recipes I've just been sharing on Instagram and making in my own personal life. I also, this is included in things I'm loving, recently tried gnocchi, which this is so random, but I had never had it before because if you look at Walmart, the ingredients in there is super weird. And so I went to Trader Joe's and I noticed like it was very simple ingredients. And so I made a like pasta bake in a sense, but I used gnocchi. I did all of these garden vegetables, and I did some raw cream, I'm trying to think, raw cheese, hamburger. Anyway, it was seriously a top 10 meal of my entire life. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's really not. We had some leftovers for lunch today, and it just gets better and better. So if you haven't had gnocchi yet and you like a gooey dumpling taste and texture, you might love it, because that is by far what I'd rather have than any sort of noodle. So that's something randomly that I put on here because, like I said, we're keeping it light today. We're not getting too in depth. And I figured, if I'm loving it, I might as well share that with you. Okay, whatever number we're on, I don't even remember. But the next one is Facebook Marketplace. And this is actually how I spent, or I kind of dragged Nate into spending our Labor Day Monday. We actually drove 2.5 hours to go get this armoire, which I feel like I almost have to say it like I have an accent, but I don't, obviously. But if you don't know what an armoire is, it's like a wardrobe. So the one that I got is kind of my pride and joy, I'm going to be honest. If you look on Facebook Marketplace, these are very expensive, and this one was not, and I was shocked. And they all were so short, and I didn't like that. So something I've learned on Facebook Marketplace is that you look for the most atrocious cover photo of something and you click on it. Not saying it's always going to be a winner, but in most cases, people that have really good things that don't know they have really good things don't post the best photos on the first photo that you see. Fun fact. It's not proven scientifically, but I have kind of realized that. And so I clicked on it. I'm like, gosh, this is cheap. And then I was looking at how tall it was, and it was over 80 inches. And I'm like, just messaged the guy. I'm like, hey, just confirming this is over 80 inches because it's for a very specific part in my home. And he sent me photos, and sure enough. So I'm like, okay, we are doing this. So I pulled the trigger, and we arranged to meet on Monday, which we had to drive 2.5 hours there. So we left at 7:30 in the morning, got there, picked it up, and then we drove straight home, 2.5 hours. So we didn't get home until like 1, which that was mostly how we spent our day. But at the same time, we live in an older home, and so having closet space is kind of rare. We have one room that has a really nice closet, but I've been kind of annoyed with having all my clothes in a closet that's different than in my room. And also I have my friend Katie coming to stay with us in September, so I'm like, I need to clear that closet out anyway. We're just gonna do this. So I also realized that clothes 100 years ago, whenever this thing was made, the hangers must have been really, really small, because now I need to get new hangers to hang up my clothes in this armoire. So it's a whole saga, but it's not really that in depth. It's like not that deep anyway, but it's just something that I'm looking at right now, and I love it. It's so pretty. I love things with character. And I think this kind of is leading me into my next thing that I've been loving, and that's creating vision boards for different rooms of my house. I know I've mentioned in the past, I want to get very eclectic pieces for my house, because I just don't want it to look cookie cutter. Like, I don't like cookie cutter. No offense if you have a brand new spanking house. I'm sure it's beautiful, but to me, it's not my style. I love an old house that has character, that maybe the basement's a little sketchy. That's, it is what it is. But the rooms have, thick trim and just different little touches, wainscoting on the walls. Like, that to me is just very special. But along with that, it's also really special for me to have pieces that are unique. And so what I did for our bedroom, because that's kind of outside of finishing up little things in the kitchen, which we did kind of map out the things we want to get done within the next year in our house, which feels really good to have that just kind of on paper and to know we're making steps towards that. But what I did is I went on Pinterest and I found pieces of furniture that I really liked, and I screenshotted them. And then I also found different walls or different textures on the walls or paint colors that I really liked, and I screenshotted that. So then I uploaded them all into Procreate, which is, Canva would do something very similar, but I was able to kind of create a collage of what I want our bedroom to look like once it's all done. And this armoire, again, I say that with such a silly accent because I don't really know how to pronounce it. It was like in that picture, it was painted in the picture, but I found it in this beautiful like oak, dark stained wood. So I'm not even going to touch it, but I was originally planning on painting it. And it's just really fun, again, to utilize Facebook Marketplace or to have a full vision of what you want your space to look like, and then actually take the steps towards making that happen. So there's obviously plenty more that we want to do in our room, but again, having that vision, I think for me, I want something colorful yet very warm and cozy, and that's something that's hard to find. I know I also have a different style. I don't like pieces that all match. I want everything to be kind of different and unique. And our bedspread, I want to get some like gingham pattern print, and I've got these pillows that I made with my grandma, like just all these little pieces. It's just really fun to see come together. And when you do a vision board, you can see that all come together. And I really feel like there is some proof behind creating vision boards and the accuracy of those things actually happening. When I look at the vision board that I created for this year, I put a lot of personal goals on there. It wasn't a lot of like, grind and business focused and money focused goals. It was like learning about herbalism and making my own sourdough and making my own butter and having a flower garden and canning all these things. Like, it was just very calming to me to look at. And when I look at the photo, so many of those things have actually happened already this year, which is just crazy. And I always think that always honestly does happen when I create a vision board. So whether it's for a room in your house or for your year ahead, like, I would highly recommend doing that if that makes you feel comfortable. To me, it makes me feel so comforted to have that and to be able to look back and just see how things have actually happened or how things have happened differently by having a vision board. And so doing that for each room in my house has been really fun. It's something I started with the master. Next, I'm going to do our guest room, which is right now my office. That's all going to shift around. And so, yeah, I'm really excited just to see how our home continues to feel cozy and inviting. Next, I am loving the book Run with the Horses. And I shared about this last week and I was like, okay, I don't really know if it's good, if it's not good, but there was a clip in there today that I wanted to read out loud because it really hit close to home. Okay, here we go. So it's talking about humans and it says, giving is what we do best. It is the air into which we were born. It is the action that was designed unto us before our birth. Giving is the way the world is. God gives himself. He also gives away everything that is. He makes no exceptions for any of us. We are given away to our families, to our neighbors, to our friends, to our enemies, to the nations. Our life is for others. That is the way creation works. Some of us try desperately to hold on to ourselves, to live for ourselves. We look so beraggled and pathetic doing it, hanging on to the dead branch of a bank account for dear life, afraid to risk ourselves on the untried wings of giving. We don't think we can live generously because we have never tried. But the sooner we start, the better, for we are going to have to give up our lives finally. And the longer we wait, the less time we have for the soaring and swooping life of grace. That was so cool. And this book has been one that has made me think so theologically, I think would be the right word. I loved theology in college, shockingly. But sometimes when I read books, I'm like, okay, there is either way too much substance here or there's not enough. And this one feels like the perfect amount. And it was talking about this story of this guy. He was watching these birds and the mom and dad would go and they would catch the food. They'd bring it back to the babies. And then one morning he was watching them and he saw the dad finally get fed up and he was shoving them off the branches of the tree. And he just noticed with each one, ping, ping for the first and the second. And they would fall, but then they would learn how to fly. And the third one finally, before it actually got pushed off, just decided to fall on its own and start flying. And it was talking about how, we hold on to things, like it said, we hold on to branches for dear life. But what we don't recognize is that when we have that push, we can actually do what we were meant to do. And like with birds, right? Their purpose, like the most amazing thing about a bird is that it can fly. It's just so foreign to us because we can't. And if it wouldn't have been pushed to the point where it was so uncomfortable, it would have never gotten the chance to actually soar. And so all of that to say, the book has been very interesting. If you need something to kind of dive more into your purpose and to see life in a bigger lens, to not, maybe think so much about the small things that are stressing us out day to day, but look at the big picture, I couldn't recommend it enough. So that is when I've been squeaking into my morning. I'll try to read like a chapter a morning when I'm spending that time outside. Next, if you need a TV series, gosh, you guys, this is seriously all over the place. I'm so sorry if this is stressing you out, but if you need a TV series, I am somebody that loves Gilmore Girls. I loved Modern Family. I really liked The Office. I just like romantic comedy. Like if there's a little bit of romance, but it's kind of funny, lighthearted, still just like a lot of different characters to follow, a lot of different plots. That keeps my focus. And we had started How I Met Your Mother. And you guys, if you've ever watched it and you actually got to the point where he actually met the mother, please let me know what happens because I'm not going to get to season 9 to figure that one out. I just don't have that attention span. So we have been we started this yesterday, but I've been pleasantly surprised by the first few episodes. It's called Parenthood. I don't know. I think it was made in 2010. If you like Gilmore Girls, Lorelai Gilmore is one of the main characters. Not her as that name, right? But as a different character. And it just switches between this one family. And at first you kind of have to figure out how they're all connected. And then once you do, like the story just unfolds. And that's actually what I'm going to do when I'm done recording this episode, because I'm recording it super late because I pushed all my work off until Tuesday and now I'm regretting it. But nonetheless, really, really liking that. I had never heard of it until Nate had said he had seen a few episodes and I've been very pleasantly surprised. It feels like a very cozy show. If you ever watched This Is Us, I would watch an episode and just sob every single episode. This is similar to This Is Us, but a lot less crying on my part. And I like to shed a tear every now and then, but This Is Us was just always very, very sad. This is sad, but in a different way. So I think you might really like it. I'm really liking it. Okay, I've got 2 more. The next one, this is more superficial, but editing reels and creating content. I talk about this a lot because it's a big part of what I do. But you have to feel in a certain mood to want to share recipes, to want to show up on social media. And this is not to say that you always have to, or that I always have to, and that I always have to be creative in doing something. But I think it's kind of with the changing of the seasons, making new recipes and trying new foods and going shopping, like I said, for new ingredients, it just sparks something in me. And so I've been recording a lot of recipes recently and just sharing them, and it's been really fun and something that I didn't have fun with for a long time, and now I'm coming back to it. And I notice how much better we nourish our bodies when I have that passion for even creating a recipe video, because then we have leftovers of that recipe and then we can enjoy it. And it just is usually something new that I've not made before. And something about that just makes me feel very much in the role that I want to be in. I thought about talking about masculine and feminine energy, but I want to wait until I have somebody that knows a lot more about that to talk on that. But again, this conversation came up this week with a client of mine, and we were talking about the masculine and feminine energy and just thinking about the traditional roles of a woman in the household is cooking. And I think as much as sometimes we want to suppress that or think, well, no, I'm independent, my husband can cook for himself, right? Yes, they can. They're adults, they can. But I feel such a different feeling around it. And I think that's really evolved over the last couple of years. But making food for other people makes me happy in such a different way. I even will make desserts and bring them to my family, or I'll make some different recipes and have my family, my parents, try them. And I'm just keep it. I don't need it. I can make it again if I want it. And just sharing that, it feels like you're sharing a piece of you and something that you're passionate about. And I don't know, I'm passionate about food, and in a way that I think right now is very, very healthy. It's not in an overconsumption or an obsessive way, but it's just in a way of using it to truly nourish and heal my body, which is so much of my platform and what I talk about. But to actually feel like I'm implementing that and practicing it and having fun again with the recipes I'm making and being able to share them, it sparks something different. So I'm of course loving that as well. And finally, reading blood work and creating protocols. I touch on this, and I have the last couple episodes, but end of July, got certified to read blood work. And what's really fun about it is because it's just such a puzzle. I think in itself, when I'm working with somebody just based off of question and answer, it's a puzzle to figure out what's going on, what the root cause of their issue is. But when you have blood work to not even back it up, but you have blood work to look at initially to kind of see the baseline of what's going on in their body. I mean, today I spent an hour and a half looking at one client's panel, and it was so enjoyable because there's just so much to think about. It's just such a different part of your brain. Like I just said, I love to be creative, but this fulfills that scientific, evidence-based piece of me that just thrives when I have a challenge. And so doing that has been really fun. And again, it's something that takes a lot of intention, and it takes a lot of research. And of course, I only have a month and a half of experience of doing it, right? I feel qualified to do it, of course, otherwise I wouldn't offer it. But at the same time, there's just little things that you pick up on each time, and I just continue to learn and evolve. And I actually got my blood work done on Thursday, got my results, and so I'm excited to kind of share more about that process. I think it would be really kind of fun to do an episode or even, share something on my blood work and how it came back and how I looked at it and what I was able to tell by the results and what maybe supplements I'm starting or what foods I'm implementing because of the results that I got from my blood work. I think it would be something that would be fun just to open up the conversation around and to be transparent about what mine looks like, because I would sure hope that I practice what I preach, but I know I'm not perfect either. So to see also areas of weakness will be good to know where I can obviously continue to improve and how I'm taking care of my body. So those are my 10/11 things that I've been loving recently. Again, I know today's episode was kind of all over the place, kind of random, but I wanted to keep it light again because I know the next few episodes will be a little bit more deep. And next week, stay tuned because I'm announcing something very exciting, and you will, of course, be the first people to hear. Lots of exciting things to share, but this one is probably the biggest. So I'll be sharing it next Wednesday, and I'll have a special guest on the podcast to share with you. So anyway, I'm so excited to talk to you again next Wednesday. Let's go ahead and close today's episode in prayer. So dear Lord, just thank you for today. Thank you for keeping us safe. And I just ask that you be with us all as we go about our day today, and that we just are able to find that time and make that time to spend with you intentionally each day this next week. And that through that, we're able to really pick up on the signals that you're sending us and the signs that, maybe some changes need to happen, or that you're trying to communicate with us, that you just feel so present in the next week. And I just ask again that whoever is listening to this podcast, that it's first just finding the ears of whoever needs to hear it, but also that they're leaving feeling inspired and encouraged just to live their most well-nourished life and in doing whatever they need to get there. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right, so if you're interested in following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Nourish with Bailey on Instagram, Bailey Seaton on Facebook. Really any platform you have, you can probably find me at under Nourish with Bailey. Otherwise, my email is in the description of today's episode, so never hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions or have anything else you want to share with me. So with that, I'll talk to you again next Wednesday. Bye.